Year 10, end of year, term 6, multiple choice questions. Solutions 2. Question 1. A liquid has a density of 0.8 grams per centimetre cubed. Density we know is mass over volume. What could be the volume and mass? So we're looking for mass over volume 0.8. Well, 16 over 2, that would give us 8, so that's no good. 10 divided by 8 would give us somewhere over 1. 8 divided by 10, well, that's sounding promising. 8 divided by 10 is 0.8, and 2 over 16 is 1 over 8, which is not 0.8. So the answer is that one. Question 2. Very small pollen grain suspended in water. Bright light shines from the side. Looking through a microscope, small specks of light are seen to be moving in a random, jerky manner. What are the moving specks of light? They're going to be pollen grains being hit by water. That's just a fact. So the answer is the second one. Question 3. A skier walks from the bottom of a ski slope to the top and gains 10,000 joules of gravitational potential energy. She skis down the slope. At the bottom of the slope, her KE is 2,000 joules. How much energy was converted into thermal and sound? Well, it's the difference between the 10,000 GPE and the 2,000 KE, because she still got, or there is still rather, 10,000 joules in the system, but 8,000 of it has gone to thermal and sound, making up the total of 10. So the answer is 8,000 joules. Question 4. A power station uses nuclear fission to obtain energy. In this process, nuclear energy is first changed to, well, you'll recall that what you do in a power station primarily, mostly, is you convert some kind of stored energy into thermal energy. You boil water, basically. That's what most power stations do. Not all of them, of course, but mostly coal, oil, natural gas, nuclear. What you're doing is boiling water, so it's thermal. Question 5. A person lifts boxes of equal weight onto a platform. What quantity will not affect the work done by the person? Well, we know that work is force times distance. And the force in this case is the weight of the box. So the work done per box is mass times gravity times the distance moved, the height. And of course, the number of boxes. The more boxes you lift, the more work you do. So the height, absolutely. Number of boxes, absolutely. The time, well, there's no time in here. The weight, absolutely. So the answer is C. Question 6. Which physical property is used to measure temperature in a liquid in glass even thermometer? So you look at a liquid in glass thermometer. What tells you the temperature is changing? It is the length of that column of liquid, and that in turn changes because the volume of the liquid changes. So the answer is D. Question 7. The graph shows the temperature of a substance as it is heated steadily. In which part of the graph is the substance boiling? Well, these should not be here. This is warming up the solid, this is solid becoming liquid, this is warming up the liquid, this is boiling the liquid, and then heating the gas hereafter. So the answer is D. Question 8. Which statement about a carbon nucleus is correct? Well, looking at this, I'm saying I've got 6 protons and I've got 8 neutrons. So 14 nucleons, definitely, that is true. 8 protons, no, it's got 6. 6 electrons, well, not in the nucleus it doesn't. 6 neutrons, well, no, because there's 8. So the answer is D. Question 9. How does the ionizing effect of alpha compare with beta and gamma? Alpha is the most ionizing, you'll remember, so it's going to have to be more strongly ionizing than beta. And it is more strongly ionizing than gamma. So the answer is D. More than beta, more than gamma. The table shows the count rates obtained from 4 radioactive sources. The measurements were taken at noon on 4 consecutive days. Which source has the longest half-life? Well, we're looking at the one which has the smallest proportionate change. So after 4 days, this is down to a little more than a tenth. It's a ninth of the original. This is down to 69 in 200, which would be about 34.5 in 100. So that's 11, 34.5. Divide that by 3. What I'm doing is saying I want this number to be a proportion of 100. So that's 11 in 100. That's 34.5 in 100. That is almost the same, actually. And that is about 12 in 100. So the answer, of course, is C. Because C has changed least proportionately. Question 11. The diagram shows the dimensions of a rectangular block of metal of mass m, which expression is used to calculate the density. Density is mass over volume, and the volume would be P times Q times R. So the answer is D. The list contains 3 energy resources, PQR, which are renewable. Geothermal is, nuclear isn't, sunlight is, P and R. The answer is B. 13. Some gas is trapped in a container of fixed volume. Temperature of the gas increases. Which graph shows how the pressure of the gas changes with temperature? Well, you know that if you increase the temperature, you will increase the average kinetic energy of the molecules, which means that there will be a greater change of momentum when they strike the walls of the container. There will be a greater force, therefore a greater pressure, and they will hit the walls more often, further increasing the pressure. So as the temperature increases, so does the pressure. No, 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 yes, D. Diagram shows a radioactive source, thick aluminium sheet, radiation detector. The reading is greater than the background radiation, which means some of what is being emitted by the source is getting to the side. What could that be? It could not be alpha. It is a thick aluminium sheet, so it could not be beta, therefore it must be gamma. You could say, well, infrared will come through, but infrared is not ionizing and therefore will not be detected by this. C. 15 takes us halfway through. The current rate from a radioactive isotope is recorded every hour. The current rate is corrected for background radiation. The table shows the readings, which estimate of the half-life of the isotope can be obtained from the readings in the table. From which readings, I suppose, is what we mean. So, in five hours, more or less halves. So it's a little less than 5. So D. (16) How many neutrons are in one nucleus of the nuclide below? The neutrons, of course, is P minus Q. 17. American cylinder contains some water, small metal block slowly lowered in. So we go from 55 to 70, gives us the volume of the metal block, the difference between the two. And then with a little piece of plastic on top, we go from 70 to 80. So therefore the volume is 10 centimeters cubed. 18. Which of these factors does not affect the power developed against gravity? Well, the power against gravity is work done against gravity divided by time. Work done will be weight times height. Weight times height divided by time is the power. So height affects it, time affects it, weight affects it, the length of the stairs does not. B. 19. Diagram shows an electric heater being used to heat a beaker of water and an identical beaker containing oil. Both are heated for 1 minute. The temperature of the water and the temperature of the oil increase steadily. The increase in temperature of the oil is much greater than that of the water. Why is this? Oil has a higher boiling point. Well, that's not indicated by that. The oil has a lower boiling point. It's nothing to do with the boiling point. The oil has a larger thermal capacity. Well, that would mean it would take more energy to raise the temperature by the same amount. This is the heat capacity of the oil, and the oil is much greater, which would suggest it has a smaller thermal capacity. It takes less energy to raise the temperature by the same amount. So D. 20. Why is the heating coil of a domestic immersion heater placed at the bottom of the tank? Well, that is because the hot water is less dense than the cold water and therefore rises, which happens to be C. 21. Pot and grain in a beaker of still water. We're back to a similar question to we had earlier on. View through a microscope, which diagram shows the most likely movement of the pot and grain. It's going to be random. It's going to be all over the place. So it's that sort of thing. Okay. 22. Which graph? Sorry. Which graph shows how the resistance of an LDR varies with intended input variable? Okay, well, the intended input variable will be light. So it's got to be one of the bottom two, right? So does the resistance increase with light intensity or decrease? Well, the answer is it decreases, so it's C. 23. Which statement is not correct for two identical lamps connected in parallel? The PD across each lamp is half the supply. That is not correct. The remaining lamp still operates when one lamp is removed. Correct. They can be switched on and off separately. Correct. They remain bright if another lamp is connected in parallel. Correct. So we found the wrong answer straight away, but we checked them all just in case there was something wrong with our thinking, which there wasn't. 24 then. Only one of the ammeters in the circuit is showing an incorrect reading. Which ammeter shows the incorrect reading? Well, we have 0.3 amps here. We have 0.1 amps here. So we would expect 0.2 amps to come down here, would we not? Because 0.3 comes in here, 0.1 goes that way, so 0.2 must come this way. That says 0.25, but that says 0.2. That's correct, that's wrong. The answer is C. 25. Diagram shows a circuit with a fixed resistor connected in series with a thermistor and an ammeter. Which row shows how temperature change affects the resistance of the thermistor and the current in the circuit? Temperature decreases, the resistance of the thermistor will increase. So that's not true. If the resistance increases, the current in the circuit will decrease. So B is true. Temperature increases, decreases, no. Increases, no. The answer is B. 26. Straight current carrying wire has a magnetic field around it, which diagram best shows a magnetic field pattern around the wire. You would expect concentric circles evenly spaced like this. So the answer is A. 27. Which row states the charge on an electron and whether electrons are located inside the nucleus of an atom? Well, it's negative and no. So A. 28. The element sodium, symbol Na, proton number of 11, which is a possible symbol for sodium nuclide. Well, 11 is right, but that can't be less than that because that has to be all of these plus something more. So that's wrong. That should be 11. That isn't 11. That has to be. So it has to be D. 29. Radioactive source emits three types of radiation, R, S, and T. The diagram shows an experiment set up to study the penetrating properties of R, S, and T. We can see R is stopped by the paper, so that's going to be alpha. S goes through the paper, goes through the aluminium, and goes through the lead, so S has to be gamma. T goes through paper, stopped by the aluminium, that's beta. So we've got alpha, gamma, beta. B. Final multiple choice question then. Question 30 says radioactive iodine 131 emits beta particles, has a half-life of 8 days. It decays to produce xenon 131. The statement about this decay is correct. After 8 days, no more beta particles are emitted. Well, that's not true. You're talking about, on average, half the number of beta particles being emitted now than at the start. After 8 days, the number of xenon 131 atoms has halved. Well, we're ending up with xenon 131, not starting with it. So actually, you'd expect it to have doubled. After 16 days, the iodine has decayed completely. No. After 16 days, the number of iodine 131 atoms has reduced to 1/4. After 16 days, 2 lots of 8, it would go from 1 to a half to a quarter. So the answer to 30 is D.